All right, so welcome everybody. Welcome to the first masterclass for 2021. My name is Alex DePrizio. I'm the Education Officer for the New South Wales Federation of Community Language Schools and one of the project officers for the New South Wales Community Languages Schools program with the Department of Education. We're very fortunate this evening to have Beniko Mason, who is live from Japan. She's there waiting for us, waiting for me to finish because she's got so much to say this evening, and she'll be talking to you about something that we touched on last year with Stephen Krashen, and she collaborates very closely on a very regular basis with Stephen Krashen. So I would like to, without further ado, introduce you or hand you over to Beniko Mason. I'll be speaking to you about a couple of other things. This will be recorded. There will be handouts, and anything that is mentioned will be made available to you, okay? So you can email me or you can chat with me and we'll do it that way. Okay, so we will let Beniko do her thing.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much, Alex, for letting me come today to give this presentation to the teachers for community languages. I am very confident that you will like what you will hear. Now, I am going to use my PowerPoint to do my presentation, because if I don't do it, then I would just go on and it will take 4 hours and 5 hours. And so I'd like to finish it in about 40 to 50 minutes. And so I will use my PowerPoint. Now, I will start with this. Okay. The title, or what I would like to talk about is story listening in GSSR, but I'm not going to talk about GSSR much today, just story listening. And a lot of people ask me why I call it story listening instead of storytelling. And there's a very good reason for it. Okay. Let's see. What do I do? No. Okay. Okay, story listening in GSSR. GSSR means guided self-selected reading. Story listening in GSSR provides optimal input for second language acquisition and deletes what's not necessary. Okay. This is a minimal way to optimal outcome. I used to say, or I still say, all you need is a teacher and a library full of books. What is an optimal input? It's not just an input, but it has to be an optimal input. And Dr. Krashen used to say, emphasize about comprehensible input. And then he began to emphasize compelling input. But when you read his book in 1982, it talks about rich input and abundant input. And therefore, he really meant by saying input hypothesis or comprehensible input, he meant optimal input. Now, the input hypothesis is, I would all like you to read 1982 book, which is freely available on his website. The input hypothesis, what he says is, the cause of language acquisition is input and not output. Therefore, you don't need anything else. Input is necessary, but output is not necessary, which means you don't have to have the students speak, or you don't have to have the students write in order to acquire the language. And input alone is the most efficient. Okay, that's the input hypothesis. Now, fundamental differences in approaches. See, there is an acquisition approach, which is the input hypothesis way, and there is another way called learning approach or mixed approach. The mixed approach is that learning approach and acquisition approach combined. Now, the acquisition approach says is input necessary? And we say yes. And then learning approach or mixed approach, they also say, yes, input is necessary. But when we ask, is input sufficient? Is it alone sufficient or the most efficient? We say yes. When it is optimal input with low affective filter, yes, it is sufficient. But learning people or mixed approach people say, no, it isn't, because they say we need some activities. We have to have the students speak. We have to have the students write. We have to have the role plays. We have to have the comprehension questions. They say these things, and therefore it's input alone is not sufficient. And then they also say, is it efficient? And then we say acquisition alone is efficient, but the learning people or learning approach people or the mixed approach people say, no, it isn't efficient. Therefore, we need some exercises. Differences in activities, acquisition approach and mixed approach. Pre-teaching of vocabulary. When people do storytelling, they sometimes teach the vocabulary that they're going to use in the story. In story listening, we don't do this. Mixed approach, they do. Comprehension questions. Teachers ask questions about the stories. How many pigs were there in the story, or the what did the first pig build? What kind of a house did the first pig build? Type of questions. And we don't ask any questions, but they do. Oral drills and repetitions. There are lots of examples, but or the next one is like formal lesson in pronunciation and spelling. We don't do that. Post listening and reading activities, excessive interaction and negotiation, formal teaching of grammar, daily or weekly tests, listening exercises in L2, grammar translation reading in L2, writing exercise in L2, and speaking exercise in L2, and error correction. Story listening and guided self-selected reading. Our optimal input way does not do any of these the activities, while the other approaches combine some of these activities in the classroom. Now, what is story listening in GSSR? This is what I have been very interested in. The thing that we have been doing is not bad. It's good, but it has been good only for a small group of people, students. But story listening, GSSR, it is for all. Okay, it can be done in any age, from small children to senior adults. It can be done at any level, like from the beginning level students to advanced level students. And this is effective and can be used, strong and weak students, the students who are very good at it and students who are not very good at learning the language. And it is also good for motivated students and unmotivated students. It is for all. Story listening GSSR can be done anywhere. You can do it at home to a child or a few children. You can teach, neighbors' kids. In a school classroom to 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 kids. At a refugee center, on a meadow in the mountains, on the beach near the fisherman's village, and on the internet to thousands of people. Anyone can teach using story listening. One does not have to have a teaching certificate. They don't have to be, he or she doesn't have to be a college graduate, or they don't have to have a native speaker proficiency. I don't, but I have been doing this. It is also cost efficient. Basic necessities for a teacher is only a computer, a printer, ink, and paper. In extreme case, only all they need is several storybooks that contain many stories from all over the world. That's all they need. And basic necessities for a student is writing materials. And in an extreme case, nothing is necessary. Theoretical background of the method is it is an acquisition approach and not a learning approach. It is only listening to stories and reading books. It, it does not mean you can't ask questions. It's not forbidden or anything. It's not like you cannot do it. You cannot teach grammar. We are not saying you cannot do it. We are not forbidding to have the students talk. That's not what we are saying. What we are saying is what we do in the classroom is listening to stories and having the students read books in class and outside of class, because it provides optimal input. No activities before the story, during the story, and after story listening. And there's one more thing which is most important, is no accountability. That means students are not responsible for understanding it. Teachers are responsible to make the input comprehensible, interesting, rich, and abundant, but students are not asked, and they're not asked to be responsible for understanding what they don't understand. Okay. What do teachers need to know about story listening? These are, I think, most of the very important 3 points. So it's not, story listening is not storytelling. Story listening is not just merely a recitation of a memorized story. It's not to convey culture, although it is a result of them understanding it. It is not teaching the subject matter. It is for everybody to enjoy the content of whatever they're listening to, the story. And so story listening is a language methodology, and therefore there are things that we do when we tell a story. Number one is we need a prompter. Prompter is, I will explain later. Okay. And number two is CAS. CAS is comprehension aiding supplementation. This is also very important. And number three is OOCAS, optimal order of CAS. This I will not be able to have time to explain, but I will explain number one and number two today. Oops. Yeah, okay. So today I will ask questions. I will answer questions to the frequently asked questions. I will answer the questions, yes. And so I will answer all these questions from number one, what is a prompter? What is CAS? How many stories do you have to tell? How long is a story? Why do you draw? Why not use ready-made pictures? Don't the students get tired of listening to stories in every class? How about academic words? How can we teach academic words using fairy and folk tales? What kind of stories to tell? What is a good story? How do you assess students' progress if you don't ask questions? How about other input-based activities? There are many input-based activities, okay? How about those, you would say, or the people used to ask me. How about unmotivated students? There are always kids who are not interested in learning the language. And what can you achieve? What can we achieve from having the students listen to stories and reading books? Yay, okay. What is a prompter? Prompter is a list of words and phrases in the story. And it's a list, and I should have given you the examples here, but I forgot. Sometimes my prompter goes all the way to like 200 words, okay? Sometimes it's only like 30 words, even for the beginning level students. But anyway, I will put them up on my webpage maybe, and then you can go to my webpage and explore what I'm talking about. Prompter is a list of words and phrases in the story. And the reason why I have a prompter is because it helps me tell the story in full. And I don't know if you will, I will have to explain more, but okay. Comprehension aiding supplementation. This is already talked about in 1982 in Dr. Krashen's book. And we have also talked about it recently again in 2018. Comprehension aiding supplementation uses both linguistic supplementation and non-linguistic supplementation. Okay, what is a no, okay. Linguistic supplementation is explanation with words, okay? Non-linguistic supplementation will be drawings, a slower speech, short sentences, and clear speech, and things like that. Even gestures and facial expressions. Comprehension aiding supplementation, we call it CAS, aims to provide students with abundant I+1. This is the important part. Okay, CAS provides rich input. I+1 means the next rule the acquirer is due to acquire or is eligible to acquire along the natural order. Okay, this is what Dr. Krashen said in the book, The Input Hypothesis, Issues and Implications, page 101, okay? So for students to be able to get better, they cannot be just listening to the same old thing, the thing that they already know all the time. They have to have something new, I+1. But this I+1 level of language has to be something that they are ready to acquire, okay? But we don't know when you have 30 kids, if you're not only teaching a few children or your own child, then you know because you have observed the child all the time. But when you have 30 kids from different backgrounds, from different schools, you don't know what they know. And therefore, you have to provide lots of different kinds of input at the language. Everybody's different. CAS throws a wide net of language. This ensures that I+1 is included. This is called the net hypothesis. Okay, this means, this means when the story text says, once upon a time, there was an old man, or there was an old fisherman. When the story says that, you don't want to go into the classroom and say to the students, once upon a time, there was an old fisherman. You don't do this when we're teaching this language. You say, long time ago, many years ago, maybe it was 200 years ago or 300 years ago, there was a man. He was an old man. He was 98 years old. He had wrinkles around his eyes and he walked with a cane. Now, while you're saying this, you draw pictures. Once upon a time, there was a man. You draw a picture of a face of a man. And then you say he was an old man, and then you write, you draw a picture, you draw a beard. And then you say he was 97 years old, you write down 97 on the board. And then you say he had wrinkles around his eyes. And the students don't know the wrinkles, but you draw a picture of wrinkles around his eyes, and then we write down wrinkles on the board. And then they will look at the word, they will look at the picture, and they will hear it, and that will be a future investment. They may not understand, they understand the meaning of it. They don't remember it, but that's okay. And then you say he walked with a cane, and you draw a picture of an old man walking with a cane. It's a stick picture. And then you write down cane. Now, this is also, some students may know it, Some students may not know it. Some students are ready to acquire it. We don't know, but we just say all these things just to explain about once upon a time there was an old, I haven't gone to fisherman yet, but this, so maybe in the text there's only one sentence. Once upon a time there was an old fisherman. But in order to say this, in story listening, we explain it. We build up the images so that the students will have this idea of what kind of man it is. Everybody has different idea about this old man, okay? But anyway, this is cast through a wide net of the language. This ensures that I+1 is included. So how many stories? As many as possible. At first, it's only 15 to 20 minutes. It goes to 60 to 80 minutes because you can do this for an advanced students. One semester to several years. I have students, senior citizen students who have been with me over 7 years. 1 or 2 to 3 stories in one class. And we do this in every lesson. Why not use ready-made pictures? Lots of people ask me, I'm not very good at drawing. Can I use ready-made pictures? And I would say, I think it's a good idea that teachers start learning how to draw. And it doesn't have to be you don't have to be an artist. You can it's okay. When you draw, students like it. It is like they can feel that you care. It doesn't matter if it's a good picture or not very good picture. To them, it's a good picture. Okay, it saves time. Okay, when you draw pictures or draw illustrations, it saves time from looking for illustrations that are just right. When you go into the computer and you look for the free clip arts, and you spend some 10 minutes, 20 minutes looking for one picture. And if you had like 30 words, why do you want to spend that much time looking for a picture? You just draw on the board. It's so much faster. It provides some time for students to process the language input. When you're drawing, it's not going to take very long. The drawing must be very quickly done, because you don't want the students to be waiting for you to finish drawing. But still, when you draw, the speech slows down, and therefore it provides some time for students to process the language input. No story, okay, when you have made up pictures, and if you start showing pictures, you have to have a place to store. And I'm not talking about story listening once a semester. I'm talking about 100 stories in 1 year, 200 stories in 1 year. And therefore, if you have 30 illustrations, papers for 200 stories, you have to have a place to store. When you draw on the board right there, no storage is necessary. No storage space is necessary for the printed pictures and flashcards. It does not cost money, time, effort to look for the right illustrations. It's the fastest and simplest way. Okay, so when the teacher says, I don't know how to draw, it's easy to learn. So just let's learn how to draw. They say, don't they get tired of hearing stories in every class? No, they don't. Stories entertain listeners when they understand them. That's the reason why children watch television or we go to movies, because there are different stories. Horror story, the story that deal with negligence, wickedness, poverty and bullying, trickery, unfaithfulness, greed, charitable actions, ingratitude, frivolousness. There are lots of different themes and topics that they have among stories. Students don't get tired of listening to it. How about academic words? This, you may not be interested when you are teaching community language, but I teach English as a second foreign language, and my students need to take TOEFL and TOEIC tests, and they need to go, they need to submit the score when they apply for a job, or they are required to score certain points while they are employed and things like that. And so I need to have the students to go almost all the way to the top. And then I can do this. We can do this with story listening and reading. How about academic words? Do they acquire academic words from hearing stories? Yes. The combination of story listening and reading helps students develop the general competence that allows them to do well on different tests. Academic words are also included in many stories. Okay, when you hear this, you will say, of course, but we have this idea that fairy tales and folk tales are for children, but they are not. For example, Grimm Brothers fairy tales, one of them is Brother and Sister. The title is Brother and Sister. And total words written in the text is 2,417. Okay. And this, when we do the text analysis of this Brother and Sister text, what we find is that there are 5 academic words. Okay. So the 5 academic words, and they are consent, pursue, remove, restore, and seek. These words are included in a story called Brother and Sister. And so I think even a small, I wouldn't say small, but elementary school children can probably acquire these words from just listening to this story called Brother and Sister. Okay. Now, when the students become advanced or high intermediate, I tell a story from Shakespeare plays. And then some people have asked me and said, Beniko, do you use Shakespearean English to tell the story? And I said, no, I will just use a regular language, but I use the words that are included in the text of the story. And so when I did the text analysis of the symboling, okay, there were how many words? It doesn't say anymore how many tokens. No. Okay, it doesn't say. This page, this slide doesn't say how many words, but there were about over 4,000 words in length in a text, and there are academic words included in the Shakespeare story, and how many academic words? 35 families, word families, and there were 46 types, and there were 58 tokens, 58 times they were used. And these are the accompany, accurately, acknowledge, assisting, author, commenced, concluded, conclusion, conferred, consent. All these words are included in the story called Symboling. So the students can just enjoy listening to the story and subconsciously hear these. No, they don't hear subconsciously. They don't hear subconsciously hear these words. They hear these words and they understand the story, and subconsciously they acquire the meaning of these words. Or consciously, I don't know. Okay, so difficult words in stories. Most folk tales contain 85% of to 90% high frequency words. And therefore, if you tell 100 stories or 200 stories to children, then they will listen, they will be exposed to lots of high frequency words. And also 15% is a low frequency words, and some academic words, and some test words, some TOEIC words. The themes cover a wide range of topics, like I mentioned earlier. Yeah, in stories, there are many abstract words in stories, words in different professions. The themes cover a wide range of topics, like we have talked about that before. Deception, betrayal, poverty, courage, true love, loyalty, friendship, mercy, secrets, disobedience, quarrels, jealousy, temptation, discipline, fidelity, faith, justice, patience, diligence, devotion, risk-taking, and many other themes are dealt in folk tales and fairy tales. And therefore, it's so interesting to listen because it's relevant to the students in our daily life. The characters in the stories have many different professions: thief, woodcutter, hunter, moneylender, doctor, minister, priest, carpenter, farmer, innkeeper, wine shop owner, servant, sentinel, soldier, wicked stepmother, and of course, king, queen, prince, princess, witch, and wizard, and many, many more. Textbooks can't do this. Interesting language. Those fairy tales and folk tales have interesting expressions, interesting phrases, complex sentences, elegant prose, description of different events, and correct grammar is used. Essential conditions for rich input. Okay. Oops. So, with the slowly listening, and when they read books, there is a good chance of a great deal of incidental vocabulary acquisition, because we want them to acquire the language subconsciously and incidentally, because we cannot force them to learn new vocabulary. When they're not ready, they will not learn. So students will acquire words that they are ready to acquire. The words that they acquire are different for different students. When you tell one story, like the Three Little Pigs, some students will acquire certain words, some students will acquire other words. And so we cannot tell them, these are the words today that you must learn. You can't do this. It's like forcing them to do something that they can't do. We cannot teach the same set of new words to everyone at the same time. When we do this, like a torture. Jeff McQuillan, our a colleague, he has been writing about this topic a lot lately. He says the title of the paper is called Harry Potter and the Prisoners of Potter and the Prisoners of Vocabulary Instruction, Acquiring Academic Language at Hogwarts. Hogwarts. I have not read the book, so I don't know these words if I'm pronouncing the words correctly. Hogwarts. Jeff McQuillan, Reading in a Foreign Language, October 2020, volume 32. He says, the Harry Potter novels contain 85% of all the words on the academic word list. And therefore, if you help the students become a reader, and he starts having the interest in reading something like the mystery stories or detective stories. And if they read, they will be exposed to necessary vocabulary that they need to go into academic field. So what kind of story should we tell then? There are lots of different kinds of fairy tales and folk tales. I guess why are we telling why are we telling fairy and folk tales? Lots of people have asked me, why not I don't know, some other stories. They say, how about a newspaper articles type of thing? And I say, I like fairy and folk tales best because it contains universal interest, like the themes, deception, betrayal, things like that, true love, okay, universal interest. And there are a variety of topics and themes already included, in different tales. And students, almost, I think everybody can enjoy it, pure enjoyment. If it was a history story and you were supposed to be teaching some person, and then some of the students may not be interested in that person. And so with the a story, it is just a pure enjoyment. And I would like to avoid risk of bringing in a certain story. Fairy and folk tales, I feel like a gossip. You're talking about someone who had trouble, and he went through different kinds of troubles, and he had afflictions, and he had hindrances and obstacles, and then somebody came and helped, but then he made a mistake, and he went into a deeper trouble, but then he somebody else came and helped him, and things like that. And so it's like a gossip, and it's safe. It's a safe choice because you're not talking about somebody in the neighborhood. You're talking about somebody who lived 200 years ago in another country. And so nobody gets hurt. Story listening is for language acquisition. And therefore, we're not trying to teach morals. If they learned morals, if they learned some kind of lesson, that's a result of it. And that's not my intention. Okay, it's just an enjoyment. And in story listening is for language acquisition. Therefore, I use folk tales, rich language from written texts. Yeah. So, what is a good story for beginners? Okay, well, of course, interesting topic and plot. Unexpected problem to start. When somebody says it's, you have to catch their attention. So you say, a queen had a baby, but the baby was a donkey. Okay, they go, what? And so unexpected problem. Rich language, we use a written text to start with. Easy for the teachers to tell, easy story for the teacher to tell. Short story, 200 words, and easy to predict for the students. Familiar problems and relatability, and a safe story, relevant but detached. It is a good idea to detach. I don't think it's a good idea to use somebody's name, the student's name in the classroom for that reason. Okay, assessment for story listening GSSR. I use closed test, vocabulary test, read and write test, listen and write test, TOEIC and TOEFL interview questionnaire. These are the assessment. Okay, how about other input-based activities? They would say, I use movies, I use songs, or how about TV shows? Textbooks are good, include lots of good stories. How about games, card games, sports and cooking? I think I have sent, no, I don't think no, I, no, I sent Alex handbook, and the people who gathered here today are welcome to have that handbook. And in the handbook, it talks about how impoverished these activities provide, and stories and books are the richest input. Okay, just a sec. Maybe it's getting too dark. Okay. How about unmotivated students? When a story is interesting and when they understand it, they listen. Okay. The goal of the program is high intermediate, low advanced. In my case, self-selected reading is the goal. And people say, how about speaking? But speaking is a result of acquired competence. And when they start listening to stories, complicated stories that last like 60 to 80 minutes, they can say, hi, how are you? Where are you going? How much is this? Can I try this on? What color, do you have any other colors in this style, in this clothes type of thing? They can do, they can ask questions. They can answer questions. You don't, it's not like you're not supposed to, you can do it. You can, it's not, I'm not saying that don't do it, but before the class starts, you can have greetings, and when after the class, you can talk to I'm sorry, why am I doing this? So yeah, the goal is for me is to have the students to be able to read authentic books. And then when they can do this, they'll be able to go on to the next level on their own. I think my goal, my job is to help them become an autonomous language acquirer. And so once it is done, I think students can go on, and then they can be taught by other different teacher on different things. They can go on to a university and learn about biology and physics and mathematics and things like that. Okay, so um, I'm not sure if you are interested in, there are three approaches in language teaching. Like I said, learning approach and acquisition approach and mixed approach. And what I do, story listening is the second one, acquisition approach. And lots of other approaches are mixed approach. And then I could go on to research evidence, but Alex, should I go on to the next research evidence part, or should I stop here and receive questions?
I think look, if it's all very interesting. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, because I mean, I've heard. I mean, we had the conversation before, so I find this to be absolutely interesting. I think if you can put the rest of it in a nutshell, and just give some, if there are any sort of basic strategies, and then if you'd like to take some questions, I'm sure people have got questions, because we've got just another. How long have we got? Well, we've got another 15 or so minutes. Do you think you can do that?
I must be taking more time. Okay,
That's
research evidence just shows that acquisition alone is more efficient than the combination of the both approaches, and it alone is most efficient among the three to reach the goal. That's the research evidence, and there are lots of evidence showing that this is a learning and forgetting. Students, when you tell the students to memorize, they learn very well right after they memorize, but then they forget very quickly. Okay. But when they do a story only, the word per minute is 0.25 words per minute, and it is much more efficient than um, story listening and doing other exercises. Okay, when you combine two things, you know, they learn or they remember more because you spend more time, but then they forget, and then when you divide the amount of acquired or understanding words by the time you spent, then the rate becomes a lot better than the time when you do stories plus activities. Okay. And so these are the vocabulary acquisition rates, and it's very good, 0.25, you know, and 0.17 and things like that. These are all replications. And the recent one that I did was the 0.24. And that means if you tell 100 stories, and if one was 30 minutes, and if you spend 3,000 minutes, that means 3,000 minutes times 0.24 would be 720 words. So if you just told 100 stories for 30 minutes each, then there is a good chance, we can estimate that there's a good chance that they will acquire 720 words if they don't forget. Okay. But people ask, don't they forget? Yes, they do forget. But what we found was that after 1 week, they only forget 6%. Okay. And with the another study, forgetting rate was 29% after 2 weeks. Okay. But then psychologist Ebbinghaus did the study, and then what he found was that in 1 week, over 80% of consciously memorized words are forgotten in 1 week. But in our case, after 2 weeks, 29%. In 1 week, 6%. And so the combination approach people, they would advise you need to reinforce and improve the clarity of the words and make it more relevant and make it more interactive, they say. So you have to talk to the students and have the students use the words to retell the story, or you have the students use the words to write the story, type of thing, output activities. But no, you don't need to do things like that. Story listening does natural revisiting. Story listening does not do artificial repeating. Optimal input is powerful combination. Story listening and guided self-selected reading is a powerful combination. And what happened was that with the story listening only, or this SSR only, my students improved from 625 TOEIC to 795 in 10 months or so. When, you can read this paper if you are interested. He did not improve at all when he was going abroad to study for English, and he was talking to native speaker teachers in a chat lounge, and when he was not reading, he did not improve on the test, but when he began to read, he improved. And so there are different other efficiency studies if you're interested. And I think it's almost all. What can we do with story listening GSSR? 1 hour a day of reading could produce a gain 200 points on the TOEIC in 1 year. Okay, so it's only 1 hour a day. Stories, and if you, yeah, okay, the 1 hour a day, it sounds like a lot of lots of time, but on 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, 15 minutes in the evening, 15 minutes at night, people can do it. Students can do this. Story listening is effective for vocabulary acquisition. When the goal is to help students become an autonomous language acquirer, we can help students reach the goal in 3 to 4 years while they are in school. Okay, so this is what Dr. Krashen has said recently. Given optimal input, we are all gifted language acquirers, which means story listening and guided selected reading are for all people. Okay, this is the end of the story. Thank you. And this is my webpage, Dr. Krashen's webpage. And we have a Facebook page called Story Listening in GSSR. And there is a Facebook page called Stories First Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Beniko Mason. If anybody has any questions, now this is the time to ask the questions that might be relevant to your community language, class. So during our chat, that's with Professor Mason, Professor Mason, I'll ask a question. You said something about how it's very important for you to be able to maintain the language. You put it in a context that I haven't actually heard that much before. And you said something about we can actually, by teaching another language, we can actually get the children to, you talked about there are geniuses out there. You remember when we had that conversation?
Oh, I love that story. Just a second.
Tell us about that one.
I'm going to turn on the light because it's getting dark. Okay. Oh, people, hello, everybody. I'm so glad to see you guys on the screen. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. And I'm so happy to be able to talk to you because sisters and brothers, this is what I think. Yay, this is what I think. So far, our language teaching has been so how do you call it? It's been gee, I can't come up with one. Prejudiced. Okay, it's been always for a very small group of people. Someone who comes from a advantaged family, or somebody whose parents are extremely education minded, or something like that. But I think education should be kept apart from money, and education, especially for the compulsory education, like elementary school, junior high school, and like a senior high school. It has to be for everybody. I think everybody has to reach a certain goal. Not everybody can become the mathematician or the linguist or the physicist, but they should have at least go to the intermediate level. And in my case, English as a foreign language, I think almost everybody must reach the point where they can read an authentic books, which I don't mean like a Shakespeare, in Shakespearean language. I'm talking about like if they should be able to read newspapers like a USA Today, or they should be able to read books by Judy Blume. And if they reach that level as a sixth grade reading level, if they can reach that level, then they understand how interesting reading books are, how interesting it is to read a book, then I think they can go on to the on their own. If they are interested in detective stories, they can go on to the detective genre, and they can become a policeman. Or if they are interested in reading science fiction, they can start reading science fiction, and they can become a scientist type of thing. And so I think that's our goal. That's my job, to have everybody reach that goal. And in order to do this, the time is so limited. I only meet my students once a week. Once a week. At most, my students can get to hear the story. Like if I tell a story, if I tell two stories in one hour, like a lesson, they can only listen to 25 stories or so. But because this time is so limited, the thing that I do in the class must be optimal. And then my students don't get to listen to English outside of the classroom, and they will never listen to English on the internet. And therefore, the time that I have with them has to be very, very optimal. And so I was saying to Alex this morning earlier, we need to reach out to this 95 students, because I don't know how you feel, but I think we are in a critical situation right now. I don't know if some people say it's not true, but global warming or this pandemic, all these things. And there seems to be lots of troubles. There are many species extinguishing and stuff like that. And we hear lots of tragedies. Now, I think if we have 95% of the students reach the goal and become good readers, and then in my case, I say English, but if they become, in your case, you are in Australia and your students can read in English. And so that's fine, but it may not work. This knowledge may not apply to you. But in my case, if everybody could read English well, because almost all the information on the internet is in English, when they can read, they will go into the information that they're interested in, and they can start discovering or inventing things which can help us make this world a better place. I think among the 95% of the students, there must be many, many geniuses buried in there. And we need to help those kids to use their talent and possibilities, or the abilities to blossom. That's what I think. And also, I was saying to Alex, with the community languages, I think it's very important that they keep them, because when you lose a language, you lose a vast amount of knowledge, wisdom, and the culture. And among those wisdoms and the culture and the knowledge in that language, there may be a hint to discover a, a, discover the medicine that is causing us trouble right now. The vaccine, you call it vaccine. You never know what's hidden in there, and therefore, I think it's very important for the teachers who are teaching the language that is not a mainstream, to keep teaching those languages so that we will not lose any knowledge and wisdom that we have hidden, so that we can discover, so that we can use that knowledge to make this world a better place. That's
Excellent.
Beniko Mason's speech.
Beniko-san, if I may, just before we go, I was think that there are a couple of questions, and there was one particular one just before you go. If we can just answer this one quite quickly. It was about the setting, or where's the best place to actually do the storytelling. I mean, our kids are in schools on weekends or after hours. Surely the parents can be involved. You know, do we tell the parents to do this sort of thing? I know, I mean, that we should, but is there a particular setting that we should have?
What do you mean? So you can do story listening anywhere, in school, at home, anywhere.
Yeah. Good. That was the question.
You can do it anywhere as long as the teacher knows how to do it, how to tell the story. See, the thing is, you cannot just go into the classroom and say, hey, kids, I'm going to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. It won't work like that. You go in there and say, listen, you know, the first thing you have to say is, you have to listen to the story because we want to learn the language, don't we? You know, we have to have this agreement with each other. And then you say, I'm going to do my best to have the story understood by you. But if you don't understand, you can raise your hand or so that I can explain better, type of thing. You know, you have to have this orientation with the kids. But the reason why you're telling the story in a language classroom is because of this type of thing. And then you have to have the students' parents understand it too. And if you are interested, I could give you the list, the letter that we have written, Dr. Krashen have written, Dr. Krashen and I have written for parents to understand this approach and how effective it is and type of thing. But anyway, so you go in there and you tell the story in class, in school, at home. You can do that to your child, to your neighbor's kids, like I said, and you can do it in the classroom. I've done this for 50 kids in the classroom, and you can do this this is my dream, you see, on the meadow in the mountains with a blackboard, and you just have the kids in front of you and tell a story. Or, you know, by the seaside. If you have a blackboard, that would be good. All you need to have is a blackboard and a chalk. And you can do that at the refugee center, because you don't need a textbook. Okay, you can do it at the refugee center, and you can do this on the internet, and you can talk to people. You can teach your language, the extinguishing, you know, the language on the internet to the people all over the world. Isn't that nice?
Okay, thank you.
You can have your own channel.
Sorry, Beniko.
Can we ask a question?
Yes, we've got some people that have got some questions. We're mindful of time, where we're just about to run out. So if someone has a question, who was it? Is it Marzena?
Yeah, hi. Hello. This is a great session. I joined a little bit late, so I don't know if that was covered already. When you tell the story to the children, and you know that there might be certain sections that have some maybe difficult concepts or words, do you, during the telling of the story, kind of stop and explain some of those phrases or concepts?
Of course.
Or just continue through this? You do, right?
Of course, of course. That's why when you make a prompter, my friend was just asking me, what are you going to say when there is a word called crimson? Are you going to just say red? And I said, no. I said, when I prepare my prompter, I'd spend a lot of hours. First, I will have to see myself what the difference between crimson and red. And then I understand what it is. And then I will explain, I will learn how to explain it. Like the crimson is the color of blood. It's not like red. Red is just an overall a concept of red, you know, different colors of red, shades of red, but crimson is a color of blood, a type of thing, you know, so you explain it. That is story listening.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, thank you for that.
Beniko-san,
And
sorry.
Hi.
I have a question, a quick one. How do you usually introduce English for the beginners who don't know the English alphabet yet?
Oh, see that I think with those children, I think you need or people you need to introduce alphabet first, and you need to have them do A, B, C, and you need to have them write down and things like that. I think because when you start doing a story listening, we do write down the words like pig, P-I-G, and you say pig or one or three or house and things like that. And so they need to learn to read the alphabet.
Okay, thank you.
This is good, isn't it, people? You can use this.
It's very different.
Yay!
It's very different.
It's very different. It's very different. And people say, why don't we have to do other things? Like, don't we have to ask questions? You don't have to ask questions, because if you start asking questions, then they will think we'll be asked questions later, and then they won't pay attention to the story, and then they don't want to listen to a story anymore. And so this is our responsibility to make it comprehensible. And if they don't understand it, and then maybe sometimes you can use their language to explain what it is. You can use translation too. But if you do translation all the time, then they will not listen to the target language. So.
What about grammar?
Grammar, you see, we want to teach I like to teach grammar too, but I stop myself from doing that, because if you start doing this, their attention stops. They just clicks, if I start explaining about the difference between and an, and they just got that, they don't want to listen. All they want is understand the story. So you don't teach grammar.
And the last question, how do you motivate your students to read?
Oh, good question. First, the students don't want to read right away, but you tell a story, many stories, 100 stories. And while you tell after you tell a story, you bring out, for the beginning level students, you bring out a very simple sentences like 3 pigs, red shirt, twig house, and then you give them a list of the words like that on a piece of paper, and you read it together, and then have the students read it together with you one by one, like you do with the little children, native speaker children, things like that at the beginning. And then gradually make it the story long, the sentence longer, and make it to a short paragraph and things like that. Okay. Alice?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Professor. It was really interesting and another concept. I'm just wondering, though, that with storytelling, students are only using 1 or 2 senses at the most, which is that of listening and maybe seeing through your drawing on the board. Now, I'm not a trained teacher, but I know that young children learn more with multisensory. That means that they are watching, they are seeing, they are listening, they are doing. How does that affect you said that they acquire a lot more vocabulary, but what about the other aspects of putting a sentence together, using the right grammar,
Right. Okay.
and writing eventually?
Right. Okay. Let's see. It's when you say writing, what do you want them to write?
Well, I write a letter to their grandfather in their country.
Okay, right.
Or,
very good. That's a very good question.
Yes.
Let's see. When you tell a lot of stories, and when they have when they acquire what their language is like, And then when you want to have the students write a thank you letter or birthday card, or you don't have to teach them how to do it. You just show them some examples and then they'll be able to do it. You don't have to do it constantly about writing and writing and writing.
Yes,
You can
yes.
spend most of the time listening to stories and some words reading. And then when the time comes, like after 1 semester or 2 semesters, when you want them to start saying things like self-introduction or the writing a thank you letter, you just show them how to do self-introduction, and then how to write a thank you letter from a few examples, and then they'll be able to do it.
Yes. So basically, we are learning like young children learn. They don't know how to write, but they listen and they understand. So then the learning comes later.
Right. This is the acquisition way, and this is the most efficient way.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Well, good.
Thank you.
Bitte. Alex, I'd like to continue 3 more hours.
Yeah, no, look, I think, okay, you've just read my mind. Beniko, I think what we're going to be doing is we'll probably continue this discussion at a later date, if you don't mind.
No.
I know that you've shown quite a bit of interest. For those of you that may have joined late, I did have a chat with Beniko, and there's so much to be said, and the enthusiasm that she has, that she transmits, is amazing, and you can see that in even just at the end, with all the tips and the strategies and the experience and the knowledge that she has. So I think we'll have to invite you back sometime. And you're in Japan, so the time difference isn't too bad. So if you don't mind, you'll be getting another invitation. Beniko, thank you so much again on behalf of absolutely everybody. It's been an eye opener, and I think we'll gained and benefited from this session. Thank you so much.
I have Alex, please give the people who are interested in this the handout that I sent to you, and the PowerPoint presentation slides.
Yes. I've just so you feel comfortable, I did. So I've mentioned it in the chat, so people know that they will be receiving it, and the recording as well will be posted online. So it's all ready to go. Thank you again. Thank you so much. For everybody else, next week we have I posted a link if anyone's interested. There's a short course starting on Monday. It's with the University of Western Sydney. It's Monday 7 to 8. For 7 weeks, and there are details in the link that I've given you. So we hope to see you there. Loads and loads of interest, and it's all looking great. Languages are doing they're doing better because of this great bunch of people that we've got here in New South Wales, and to people like you, Beniko. Thank you so much. And for everybody, good night. And
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Nice to have met you. Hope to see you again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.